Good evening, Jam Talkers. Hope that you're all off to a great start for a wonderful weekend. Of course, we're here again at our usual place where we discuss some hard-hitting, interesting, and most times serious and controversial issues that are affecting our country. Of course, this evening's topic will be no different as we are really continuing on the third part of the series on crime that we have been discussing for the past few weeks. This is our wrapping up where we will delve into finding some solutions that could work, even if not in the immediate moment. So this evening's show really is wrapping up our series on finding solutions to crime. Do we have the political will? In our two previous shows, we kind of zeroed in on the different causes of crime, the many different contributing factors to crime, ranging from the foundation set by some of our politicians and politics in general over the years, to the many social, psychological, genetics, and substance abuse factors that have contributed to the high rise in crimes here in Jamaica. Last week, of course, I kind of got emotional as I am quite aware of many of the youths who have turned to a life of crime would have liked a different type of life. They would love to have put on their jacket and tie and go to work and park in their designated parking space, going into an elegantly designed corner office with glass doors and windows, being served coffee or tea by a very beautiful and sophisticated personal assistant. However, their reality, for one reason or another, have turned out differently from the dreams they had for themselves as a child. Their reality is now determined by their circumstances, and that's a real issue that we have to deal with, that not all persons who are involved in crime really wanted to be a criminal. They wanted a different life, but somewhere between their dreams, their ambition, and the reality of where they are now, something got derailed along that path. And there is a song by Buju Banton that says, "Circumstances made me what I am." And a few lines from that song goes as follows: "Circumstances made me what I am. Was I born a violent man? Circumstances made me what I am. Everyone should understand. Circumstances made me what I am. Was I born a violent man? Circumstances made me what I am. Everyone should know. May sound strange, might sound foolish, but things ain't getting better. Every day another fall victim to the Beretta. Why is there so much violence, killing with one another?" So that's a song, a very popular song by the famous Buju Banton. But is this the truth in its entirety? Do our circumstances determine what characterizes us as a person? Do our circumstances determine for us a life of crime? Of course, those of us who chose that as a way of life. Or is it us who determined our circumstances and choice to be anything we want to be? I will tell you here and now that there's no one clear-cut answer to this question, and we will therefore have to take each situation and analyze it for its uniqueness. We know that the hotspots for crimes and violence here in Jamaica are really concentrated in the ghettos, the inner cities, and garrisons. We know that when we look in the prison system, it's poor people picnic who we see there. And the people who are mostly uneducated and unskilled, those are the people we see in our CPAC in our prison system. We don't see the lawyers, we don't see the doctors, we don't see the teachers, nurses, and politicians to the magnitude or even close to the people who are from the poorer strata of society and of, poor and desolate means. So it's kind of safe to say that though there is no documented correlation between crime and poverty, crime and a lack of education, crime and unemployment, there is still a strong case to support the statement that there is a close connection between crime and people who are poor, unemployed, and uneducated. As many will tell you, food have to eat by whatever means necessary. Hence, if this close connection between crime and poverty and the inability of people to earn a decent living through the formal system of employment exists, what then are our politicians and the many other agencies and stakeholders doing about creating equal opportunities and means of legal employment for these youths who are committing the crimes? What are we all doing as citizens of this country to prevent the many desolate youths we see all around us struggling to buy a bowl and a bag juice, to have for dinner, to give him some strength to go out on the streets, to hustle again tomorrow? How active have we been as citizens in intervening to help the children, mostly boys we see on the streets hustling every day? And I come back to the church, the many, many churches all around the communities in which these youths reside. You collect tithes and offering every Sunday or Saturday, but how much of that are you giving back to the communities from which you operate? How many of these children are you assisting to stay in school? Are you providing any form of mentorship for, or even assist to get a warm meal at times before night falls? I know many of us think that it's not our responsibility to feed and school other people's children. And you're quite right, it is not our responsibility and certainly not an obligation, especially when we have ours to take care of. But from a moral standpoint and from our social responsibility to help in every way to protect and serve our communities, it places that burden of care on each and every one of us, as we know that if these youths are not steered in the right direction from an early age, they will automatically resort to a life of crime, placing all of us at risk. And I will not even mention here how annoyed and angry it makes me to see the women and the men who irresponsibly produce children that they know they cannot support or maintain, and they would not even try to take onto themselves personal responsibility to take the necessary precaution or care through birth control and other means of prevention, which are all free in every health centers in the many communities right across Jamaica. And of course, next week, this is really a topic that I will delve into, because it is full time that women and men take full personal responsibility for their lives, and to know that the children that you have brought into this world, you are bringing into this world, they are your responsibility. But for some strange reason, we see, people just frivolously having children without no care as to how these kids will survive, how they will be educated, how will they get access to good health care, to have a roof over their heads, and to live normal lives like other children. So next week, of course, this is a topic that I will pay some attention to. When we're hungry as adults, it's not a nice feeling. Can you imagine what a child goes through when he's hungry and you can't find food for him to eat? And we sit and we wonder why these children are so aggressive and acting out in schools and in the communities. I know that when I am hungry, I'm not in the best of moods, I can tell you that. And it's not that I'm hungry because I cannot afford food, but for whatever reason I just didn't get to eat on time, and I'm irritable and really just frustrated and definitely not in the best of moods. Equally, this is what our children go through when they're hungry, don't have clean clothes to wear, and drowning in their sorrows of poverty. It makes them angry when they look at how they live in comparison to other children who have parents who are caring for them. And of course, it makes them angry that they didn't choose to be here, yet they are brought here to live a life of stress and frustration from such an early age. They're filled with rage and anger, and guess what? They're not just angry at a few in their household or in their communities. These children, they're really angry and they're really mentally at war with the world. So of course there's no surprises to see the highest percentage of people committing crimes here in Jamaica, ranging from the age of 10 to 29. Sometimes when I look at the faces of these children who are struggling in poverty, there's just no innocence, there's no youthfulness, there's no usual happy smiles that we're familiar with from kids. It's just a hard face that is filled with sadness, anger, and rage. So this takes us back to putting crime into context as it relates to its causes. And of course, we'll agree that it has many contributors, one of the main contributor being poverty. And overall, the system is just filled with many trigger factors for crime and violence here in Jamaica. Politicians have failed us, parents are failing their children, the injustice and inequalities in our society plagues us. Our children, some are, acting out. Even some that really, poverty is not a trigger factor. There may be some psychological or genetic thing going on with them that really makes them more aggressive than the normal child. So, and there of course the substance abuse. People are stressed out, they have a myriad of problems plagued with, and of course some turn to drugs and alcohol as a remedy, and over time have become substance abusers, diminishing their usual judgment of actions in how they would mediate and deal with their problems. So when we look at all of this in its totality, where do we begin to find workable solutions to our crime problems here in Jamaica? And of course, this week's show is really to look at some ways in which we can reduce crime and its reach, how we can neutralize this monster that has gotten out of control and has held all of us at ransom and hostage, where no one feels safe anymore, not even in our own homes. So let us look at some of the solutions that will work if implemented, though some will not yield immediate effect. And I am somebody who believes in curbing the youths from their young. And the Bible says, if you grow up your children in the right and proper way, they will not depart. So I will start off my solutions, and this is really most of my thoughts going into some of the solutions that could work, that could assist us in really minimizing the high rise of crime here in Jamaica and reach, because it really has become kind of obvious that the war between the lawmakers and the lawbreakers, it's one that is ongoing, and in that war, the lawbreakers are the ones that are winning. The lawmakers seem not being able to keep up with the lawbreakers, and that's a frightening reality for many of us here in Jamaica. So, most of these thoughts, it is just me putting some ideas out there as to some things, some ideas that could work as solutions to a crime problem, though not all in the immediate moment. So I will start off by focusing on the preventative measures first. And of course, I will start off by holding parents responsible for the proper rearing of their children. And I see here in Jamaica, and maybe it's a global thing, that parents really think that it's everybody's responsibility but themselves to rear their children in the right and proper way. They think it's the principal's responsibility. They think it's the teachers. They think it's a member of parliament, the police officers, the pastor's responsibility to raise their children. Parents in recent times, have not been investing the right amount of time in the proper nurturing and caring for their children. They don't ensure that the child is doing well in school. They don't pay attention to when the child is acting out, to get to the root cause, to understand. They don't have dialogue with their children. They don't communicate effectively with their children. They don't build relationship with their children. So the children don't even want to talk to them. I will tell you, some children will prefer to turn to a stranger than to turn to their parents, because the foundation has never been set for that level of relationship and communication to take place. The children are afraid to open up a line of conversation with parents, because parents, in how they nurture their children, in how they communicate with their children, they basically put up more barriers than leaving the door open for the child to come in and talk about just about anything that is bothering them. And that's a serious problem. They don't show the children any form of love or affection. It's just a hard, cold kind of relationship. It's very distant. And of course, the children just grow up cold and distant from society in general. And in how they relate to their peers and to the wider society. As I said before, if the child is not performing well in school, many parents don't go to PTA meetings. They don't go in and just make random checkup with the teacher or the principal. How is Tom doing today? You know, what is going on? Anything else I can do to assist him to do better in school? And of course, I will admit, a lot of parents who are having children are children themselves. That's our reality. That's another reality. They don't have the parental skills that are necessary to properly raise their children. And of course, they sometimes, because of pride, refuse to reach out to somebody else for help, or maybe they just don't know where to reach. They don't know how to reach out for help. So there are many different issues there at play that are preventing our parents from being that traditional, from giving that traditional type of parenting that many of us grew up on. And of course, when their child or children are not performing well, it's the teacher's fault. And they go to the school and they cuss off the teacher, and they make noise, and they try to demonstrate to get rid of the principal. And when their children are acting out and displaying deviant and bad behavior in the community, and somebody else brings it to their attention, of course, the first response from some of these parents is to attack the person who cared enough to have identified that your child have a problem and come forward with a willingness to let you be aware of the problem and even to see how they can help. And of course, everything is somebody's fault here in Jamaica. And this is not just about being good parents. I realize that as a people, we refuse to accept personal responsibility for our plight, for our lives. We always think that whatever happens to us is somebody else's fault, is somebody else's responsibility to solve our problem, and we just sit back, and if somebody don't solve it for us, we just sit down and we continue to play this blame game and this being a constant victim in every situation, and we were never ever proactive in reaching out for help in situations where we can't help ourselves, because that's a reality. All of us need help, whether we want to believe it or not. It doesn't matter how independent we think we are. No man is an island, and we need that kind of support, whether it's moral, financial, spiritual, physical, whatever it is. We cannot just totally stand on our own. We were never created to just be that all by myself. I can do this all by myself. We weren't created like that. We were created to be nurturing and to be supportive and to build relationship and cohabitate. That's why God created a man and a woman. And when he created even the animals, he made a female and a male sex or gender. So when you need help, reach out. It's not enough to say I don't know or I can't. Reach out and get the support and the help you need, because when your child turns into a criminal, you're going to go out there and you're going to blame the police, and you're going to curse the police and hate the police, and that the police is just targeting your child because he's poor, and you've come up with the excuses. But the signs were always there. The aggressiveness, the deviance. Most times parents see these signs from a very early stage and they ignore them. They sat down and they totally ignore them until they festered and blow out of proportion. And when, it starts to create a problem and other people come into play, like the police, then you start to blame the police for doing their jobs. And I often say, yes, the police at times abuse their power. And yes, a lot of times the police, tend to profile a certain people and harass them unnecessarily. But then we need to, if we know that is our reality, we need to ensure that we don't carry ourselves like criminals. It is quite unlikely that the police is going to just pass an appropriately dressed man and just start to harass him just like that. It is quite unlikely. But if you look suspicious, if you carry yourself in a certain manner that would make people think that you are not an upstanding citizen of your community, of course you're going to be harassed. So to prevent being harassed, just carry yourself like a decent, upstanding citizen of your community. Stop playing the blame game and start to be more proactive in creating the pathway in how people treat us. We at times determine how we are treated, whether we want to believe it or not. So when our children, parents, getting back to you, when our children become a menace to society, and your first response is to go out and block roads and demonstrate and to come on TV and say how your son was an altar boy and the best thing since sliced bread, and you saw the signs, and some of you know the reality of what your children are doing, but of course you turn your blind eye for one reason or another. Some of you are even afraid of your children. I know a girl right now in one of those garrison communities that her mother is afraid of her because she constantly beats her mother. So I know some parents have created monsters who they themselves cannot control. Some parents are being abused by their children, believe it or not. So that is another reality. But reach out for help. I personally will not have a child in my house that I cannot talk to and relate to as a child. If you think you're an adult, adults work and adults pay their own bills and adults take care of themselves. So if you think you've reached that stage where you're an adult, you have to go and be an adult somewhere else, and that's just the reality. I will definitely call the state in to take you and deal with you from there on. But I could never have a child in my house that abused me physically and that I'm afraid to talk to or to have any kind of communication with, out of fear that this child will abuse me. It couldn't happen, not in this lifetime. But parents, you are the first, and you have the first and ultimate responsibility for the rearing of your child. Please take personal responsibility for the actions and behavior of your children. You are the ones who will help to determine whether or not your child turns out to be a doctor or a thief, depending on the role you played in raising your children. A lot of parents just don't realize that the ultimate responsibility for determining the future of your children rests with you. Other agencies around you, other stakeholders around you. It's just to facilitate and to assist you in ensuring that your child realizes his dreams and ambitions. But the ultimate responsibility is yours as a parent. You brought these children into the world. And of course, whilst you're a minor and remain under your care, you are responsible. You're responsible for how they behave, and of course, what type of person, what will characterize them, what adjectives will be used to describe them as they go through their adolescence years into adulthood. And of course, the parents with deviant and disruptive kids are getting away far too easy. They're absconded of all responsibilities and leave all burdens of action on everybody else but themselves. And of course, this must change with immediate effect. When you find a 14-year-old walking around with guns killing people, where are the parents? When a 12-year-old girl is on the street until midnight in the company of adult men, where are the parents? When you have a 13-year-old stabbing and killing other children in schools, where are the parents when they were taking knives and knives pick to school? I see young boys aged 12, 13 bleaching and wearing tight pants and pants below their butt, and I wonder which home are these children coming out of? So I think if we implement laws to equally hold parents responsible for the actions of their children, this will, of course, drive them to pay more attention and to take more responsibility for the actions and behavior of their children when they fall out of line. As a matter of fact, some of the behavior displayed by these kids derived from what they see and hear from the adults in their homes. And of course, as the old adage goes, a child, of course, lives what he or she learns. So it's full time that we start to see police dragging these parents before the courts for parental neglect and absconding on their responsibility for growing up their children the right and proper way. And of course, we know that times are hard and parents face many different challenges, but that is no excuse. Get up, get out, and find the necessary help. Reach out to someone for help. There are many agencies and charitable organizations set up to assist you with whatever problems you are facing. But of course, some of you know that your son is a little shatter from him 12, and before you try the laws coming out in full effect to hold parents responsible for being parents to their children, you bring these children into the world, becomes higher, it increases because he's not in any kind of setting or institution that will act as deterrent or keep him focused on something else. He's just left on his own acting out, and of course his behavior is just left there to fester and worsen over time. Alright, and of course another issue we need to look on is we need to be more proactive. And of course this is an issue, as I mentioned before, that I will look into in more depth in my next show. But I think we need to come to a place where we need to implement laws that basically restrict the amount of children people can have based on their affordability. It is nonsensical that women think they should just get up and have any amount of children they want to have, even though they cannot afford to care for the child. The good health care they need, the education they need to feed them so they are nourished properly. There's no surprises that a lot of disturbing crime, the high rise of crime in our society. Also, we need to get more support from proactive community associations and agencies. Look at the churches for support, your local businesses, your PTAs, your citizen association and schools, and get them actively involved. And of course, though we mentioned prior that parents have the first and foremost responsibility for the proper rearing of their children, they really cannot do a proper job alone. And we must go back to the days when it took a village to raise a child. No man is an island, no man stands alone. All stakeholders in the community must play their role in ensuring that the young men in the communities in which we live are properly mentored and monitored and are steered in the right direction. Really focus